Hi students, and welcome to video 6 in the Preliminary Chemistry Chemical Earth series. In this one we're going to have to start playing with some numbers because gravimetric analysis is a particular type of separation method where we actually want to know something specifically about the percentage components within the mixture. So gravimetric analysis is precision by weight. The important thing when we're looking at gravimetric analysis is we're basically taking some of our separation techniques and moving them further on. So if, for example, we had some water with sand in it, for example, and we decided we would do a filtration to separate the sand, which is insoluble, from the water, we might want to know what the proportion of sand was. If we have salt water, we might want to know how salty the water is. So again, what we might do initially is weigh the mixtures, and you would also for the sand and water mixture, weigh it initially. Then when you've separated the two components, so in the second case, we would evaporate the water and leave the salt behind. We re-weigh the salt once it's dried, and then we can compare the weight of the salt with the original weight of the solution, or we dry the sand, we weigh the sand, and we compare the weight of the sand with the original weight of the solution of the mixture. And that gives us an idea of the proportions of the different components of the mixture. So most of the time what we're looking for in gravimetric analysis is just a percentage composition of the particular mixture. And that's based on the total weight or mass. Now this is very, very important. It has some significant applications beyond the classroom, beyond just sort of a little bit of interest for interest's sake. In certain things like mining companies will want to know whether or not the amount of a particular metal in an ore body is going to be sufficient for it to be economically viable. If they're going to go to the trouble and expense of trying to extract an ore from the ground, they're going to have to refine that ore to extract the mineral that contains the metal, and then further to isolate the metal. That's going to be a lot of processes, and you want to make sure that there is enough of that metal in there for you to make a profit. Sometimes there's certain types of chemicals that are present in soils that are important for optimal growth, and of course sometimes there are certain ones that are going to negatively affect plant growth. And so again, we need to be able to monitor our soils to identify what the amount of different types of substances that are present. Pollutants is also something that's a problem. We have pollutants in our air. We also have sometimes pollutants in our water. We need to make sure that we can identify what the numbers of those are in order to ensure that they're not a danger. And sometimes you're just looking at different ingredients. If you were comparing a name brand with the home brand or the company brand of a particular type of food, for example, you might want to check some of the key components to see whether or not they're in similar, if not the same, proportions. Each of these is based on the technique of gravimetric analysis, where we actually get a percentage or a number. Now, sometimes the percentage is sufficient. Sometimes, of course, the amount, particularly if we're looking at something like pollutants, can be very, very small. And in those cases, we might use something like a concentration, grams per litre. Sometimes we might use things like parts per million. And we'll look at these in a little bit more detail in later videos. So, just to, I guess, expand that example I looked at before, just so it's clear in your mind, if we wanted to carry out a gravimetric analysis of seawater, then what we should do with our seawater is weigh it, then remove the water through evaporation, and then re-weigh the dried salt that's left behind, and then make a comparison between those two weights to give us a percentage in comparison to the original sample. So here's a little example for us just to have a quick look at now. A 12-gram sample of an ore was found to contain 3.6 grams of the metal aluminium. What does this represent as a percentage? Well, this is exactly the sort of problem that we are looking at when we're doing our gravimetric analysis. So the simple thing we do is for the percentage of aluminium, we need the mass of aluminium divided by the total mass, and we're going to express it as a percentage, so we need to multiply it by 100. So in this case, it will be 3.6 divided by 12, times 100, and that's going to be 30%. Now, our next question is, if the ore needed to contain at least 45% aluminium to be viable, would this be an economically sensible decision to mine this particular ore? And of course, in this case, 30% is less than 45%, so you would not be getting as much as you need to. So of course, our answer in this case is no, it would not be sensible to do this. And that's the use of, or one of the uses anyway, of gravimetric analysis. Thanks for watching.